What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Content is Profit. What if I told you that we brought today a creative director for a Fortune 500 company? She has worked with Burpees, Adidas, Stoli Vodka, Chase Bank, these incredible companies, right? Also, she has been featured in Forbes, and we talked about this thing called branding that a lot of us are losing a lot of time into and is blocking us from creating revenue right away. What about we ask these questions and we find out that there's a hidden third layer of branding? We actually get a new definition around branding on like why these big brands are so successful and how you can apply it today as an entrepreneur or maybe a small business owner. We break down the number one mistake that we all do. By the way, I share a very funny story on how our, branding, and I do air quotation, started. And why we should be looking not at who we are today, but something else to be able to create that profitable branding. So all these questions and way more in this incredible conversation that I had just now, and you are about to experience. So thank you so much for that. And also, if you are not a part of Business Creator Club, go to businesscreator.club, become a founding member, come into this incredible online space where we can share ideas. We share the frameworks that have not only helped us move the needle forward in our business, but these incredible guests that come to the show come in and do very specific things, including how to 9x your business from Amanda Holmes. She's coming to the community at the end of June to do this. So if you haven't checked it out, let me know, send me a message. But with that, enjoy the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to Content is Profit. I'm excited today to welcome a good friend. I was just on her show yesterday and she was asking all these very, very smart questions. And we may have gotten in a tussle about branding. No, I'm kidding. That did not happen. She is incredible. Like, we connected through our mutual friend, Adam, who has been on the show a couple of times. Shout out to Adam and thank you for those connections. And also, she has been a creative director for a Fortune 500 marketing firm. Talk about experience. So cool. There's other brands like Burpees, Adidas, Stoli Vodka, Chase Bank, and we can continue doing this. So wealth of knowledge. We're about to extract all this knowledge. And also, she has been featured in Forbes multiple times and been asked to be a contributor for Entrepreneur Magazine, which, fun fact, that's what got me into business. I was like in college, I was like, Entrepreneur Magazine, let me read all the secrets. And it was like super addicting. So with that, guys, I really want to welcome Tiffany Neuman into the show. Welcome, Tiffany. What's up?
Hey, what's up? Thank you so much for having me. I love that you said that we were sparring. Little known fact, I was actually golden gloves in high school. So.
Oh, no way. For like, are we talking boxing?
Yeah. Yep.
No way. So it's like a YouTuber, they come in and be like, hey, Tiffany, we just want to do like one of those boxing matches. You're like, I'm good.
Yeah. It's been a long time since high school, but I could probably do pretty well compared to somebody who's never done it before.
That's hilarious. That's incredible. I've never put on a boxing glove in my life. So I'll be like, what about we go play soccer? Like, I think
you would totally annihilate me.
That I am like probably like 10 times slower than what I did in college, but here we are. But Tiffany, I'm so excited to have a chat with you because branding, I think when we met, I don't think we've ever had an episode specifically on branding. And I'll start with a very quick story of a phone call that I had this morning. About our names, because I know like you warned me about our branding name before your interview, and it's like, Luis, I have to like give a warning to my people, and then we can go into that in just a second. But we get this comment quite a bit today, where it's like, oh my gosh, like you guys branding is on point. We love the thing behind it, and I'm like, if people knew how we got to that point. So I'll tell you how we got to that point, and then we can kick off the conversation there. So branding was the last thing we were thinking about when we started the company, right? Like, we went out and we sold our first like service to a restaurant, and we collected the check, and we were like, oh crap, like we cannot put this in our personal bank account. We have to go actually start a business. So we registered the business that afternoon and we got our numbers, we opened our bank account. And when we're sitting there, we're like, what's going to be the name of the business? And we looked at each other, me and Fonzie, and we were like, we're brothers and we do business together. So I guess it's going to be called the Biz Bros.
Biz Bros.
And we put in Biz Bros LLC. And that was the start of it all. And then our initial, like, I guess, color palette for like the branding of the logo that we were trying to do in Canva at the time. We literally went to like random color generator and hit random. And it was like the third button. And we're like, that kind of looks cool. And it was like the most random colors everywhere. And that was the birth of the Biz Bros brand. So what are your professional thoughts on this?
Actually, I think it's super common. I always say we build the plane while we're flying it as entrepreneurs. And so it's great. I tell people, actually, I'm probably one of the only brand strategists to say this, like branding isn't the first investment you should make because you need to know if your product is even viable, right? And so I don't typically work with people who are like that brand new or like, I don't know who my ideal clients are and I don't know this. So I think it happens so often where people are just like, okay, here's a logo, here's some colors, here's the name. And then a lot of times, sometimes names stick and then sometimes time goes on. And a lot of people too, because you're in a partnership, you had to come up with a name. A lot of people start branding like with their personal name and then they have this whole evolution. So there's so many different ways, but it's super common to just be like, hey, let's just do this. And actually, I think it's smart at the very beginning. So
yeah, well, thank you so much. We had no idea. And like the reason I like to share that story is because, you know, we got a lot of people so hung up on like the branding side of things, right? Like I can't launch this thing or I cannot produce this piece of content on like, unless the branding is like completely right. Right. Do you see that often with the people that you help?
Absolutely. I think perfection is the prescription for procrastination, really. Like it happens all the time where people are like, okay, I have to have this perfect before I launch it. Exactly like you said. And then 2 years later, they still haven't launched the thing. So I really think just getting it out there is the first step. Yeah. And then, yes, eventually you get to a space when you want to speak on stages or you're writing a book or you really want to take your business to the next level. At that point, then absolutely you need a really incredible brand. But starting out the first day, it really doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. So, yesterday we had somebody record here. She's an incredible person, you know, building her business and moving forward. And they were recording a specific type of content. It was like course type content. And the angle that we had the camera, there's a TV right here in the studio where it kind of shows the logo. We normally brand the studio with like the company logo or the show logo, so on. And we delayed the start of the recording because she really wanted like this specific picture there with a specific logo of the course. And I'm like, I'm not gonna say the name, but I was like, hey, it's okay. Like this is not a decision that we should be like wasting our time right now. It could be added in post-production later. We just need to get the show like going, right? Like we need to get you on the flow back again. And it was like almost like this micro moment that I see with online entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general, right? Where like this like little dot is not here, right? And it crushes like the creative process or like the flow of things, right? So what are maybe some first steps that people can take if they're in that spot of like mental overwhelm, right? And I feel like it might be like a fake overwhelm to start moving the things forward.
Yeah, I think part of it is we just get so high up into our heads and like the overthinking. So this is like, a pretty obvious answer, but for me, even if I'm like, oh my gosh, and I find myself getting stuck, I'll go outside and walk around or take the dog on a walk or just do breath work or something and really just reset and then come back and remind myself it's not a big deal. I mean, if you're playing the long game, those little blips in the moment, those aren't going to matter in the long term. And I think that's really what makes successful entrepreneurs is when you're focused on the long game, you're like, okay, I'll figure it out. You know, I really try to look at everything as an experiment along the journey until I know that I've nailed it, because otherwise I feel like it's so easy to just keep going in circles and not make decisions because we get decision fatigue as entrepreneurs. There's a lot of decisions to make.
No, 100%. And I think like I think we're both in agreement that we should not be losing, any sleep or time wasting on things like that. Something I always go back every time I feel that way, because like we are helping people like launch their, like, I guess not their online brands itself, but maybe the podcast. There's an element of branding that has to happen. But especially us, like I've been on this like creative kick in the last like couple of weeks where, we don't only have like Biz Bros we're trying to figure out like what Biz Bros as a brand. We have this other name called Two Brothers Media, which is like the I guess the umbrella of like everything else that we've done. Biz Bros is like the online personality. Then we have Content Momentum, which is a service. We have the studio podcast suites, Business Creator Club. There's like these little brands, and we're like, wow, like each one is different because it also serves a different purpose, right? And then maybe you tell me, Luis, you guys are doing everything wrong, and please tell me because, but like that's at least like the vision that we had of the moment. And we recently had a meeting with our in-house designer. I was like, okay, Maddie, we need to, let's say this is the idea. Everything has a purpose. Can we make it coherent? They're different specific little brands, but can we make it a little bit coherent? They all start as different things. I think we're getting there to the point where we can actually like put it on our website and it makes sense. But I go back to the example of a company called Maximum Effort. Are you familiar with them?
I'm not actually, no.
So this is Ryan Reynolds' production company. And if you go,
actually, please say that I've read an article about it. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you go to their website, it's like very very clean. It's like black and white. This like M type logo, like almost like handwritten, which is, an M. And then if you flip it is an E, which is super smart. But also it's like super simple. It's like, hey, here are all the projects that we've done. This is the type of the type of project that we take on. And it's super simple. It's like, that was the main idea behind Two Brothers Media. It's like, this is what we do. And like this specific thing goes there. Right. So once you have, these entrepreneurs are launching products, are launching shows, how do we make sure that everything is coherent?
Yeah, it's such a good question because that's like my main focus for companies. What I did when I worked with like Burt's Bees and things like that, because they'd have new products. And so what you want to think about, you were kind of on the right path as far as thinking as an umbrella, because when you have what I call a brand operating system, that's my trademarked name for it. A lot of people say brand ecosystem. I call it a brand operating system. Then when you develop new products or you take things out of the ecosystem, once you have the foundation set, it's very easy to add things, remove things, change things, because everything is coherent and consistent. Now, the one issue that I see most people making is that they focus only on the visuals. And the visuals, yes, that's what people see. That's what people focus. That's what people think is branding. The logos, colors, fonts. That's actually just the icing on the cake of a brand, in my opinion. And so if you think about an iceberg analogy, what I like to think about is the tip of the iceberg above the surface of the water. Those are the visuals. But actually, the entire brand operating system that's running behind the scenes is below the surface. It's what people don't see. So what I do for my clients before we do all that visual work, and a lot of the times that's great because simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication, right? So getting everything coherent is important. But we really want to look at like, how is the inner workings of the brand? Are the messagings aligned? Are the naming conventions aligned? Are everything else aligned so it makes sense? Are the offer suites stacked properly? Are the price points correct? What are the messaging like vehicles? Looking at all of those pieces first and making sure that's consistent and cohesive. And then that's the work that I do as a creative director. And then like we go to our designers and say, okay, now knowing all this, it becomes very clear of like, oh, we just do this for the visuals, right? So you're on the right path, but I just feel like it's a lot bigger if you think of the entire brand operating system, because really your brand is everything that you do, which I think is why you guys have been so successful is because you are so authentic. You show up, you're not trying to, you're just like, this is what we do. This is who we are. And that's where I see a lot of people overthinking is like, oh, I have to show up this way, or I think this is going to work.
Yeah.
Or subconsciously they're showing up not even as their true authentic self because of something. For example, my client Ina, she's from South America, and she's a firecracker. She's on it. If you meet her in person, I'm like I'm a little bit more calm. So it's like, I love being in her energy because she's like so big energy.
I think I know who you're talking about. I think she's been, I guess, on the show. If it's the same Ina that we know from Boston.
No, she's actually, now I'm forgetting where she's from because it's been a few years since we worked together. Anyways.
Yes. You tell me more of the story and I'll be like, that's okay. Her. Yeah.
So when we met though, you'd go to her website and she had just had a baby, and literally the colors of her website were blue and pink, like baby colors. And she was like all like subdued in her like mom clothes and like really calm. And her pictures were all serene and nice. And I was like, and she's like, I don't know, like, I don't understand. And her voice too, like the copy on the website and what she was putting on social media. And then you met her in person, you're like, this is not even the same person.
Yeah.
And so the other piece of that whole entire brand operating system is the energetics. Literally, you can have the best messaging, you can have the best visuals, you can have all the stuff out there. But if you're either hiding and afraid to put yourself out there, which happens for some people, or they do it, but they're not doing it fully, or there's a mismatch. And usually it's subconscious. Ina had no idea. And then as soon as I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you this. And she was like, holy shit, you're right. And she said, my parents as a child were already always saying like, calm down. And, you have to be kind, and you're a girl, you have to be calm. So she literally branded herself for what she thought she should be instead of who she actually is. And when we flipped on that switch, not only did she become more confident and want to put herself out there, but stuff started selling because she was being herself, and people can feel that energy, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite stories to explain,
so good.
The third layer of a brand that people don't even think about.
I'll put it here, hidden third layer.
Yep. Exactly.
I think that aligns with a lot of the things that we talked about lately on the show. Like just 2 days ago, we published one with our incredible Steve, and we talked about the energy around creation and how to be more creative and authenticity, and all this like steps to do it. And I see more and more right now that trend where I feel we need to be as creators, because now with AI, it's very simple to put in a prompt and get some information. But what's going to be different is going to be you, right? And I come from the world of sports, right? Like the reason I came to the States to play D1 soccer. So like that was my dream. So also as a player is like, if we do the comparison, right? Like you play this position and there's like millions of other players that do that. When I did a tryout in Italy, and the recruiter came in, or the scout, and he's like, you're from Venezuela. Why we're moving forward to the next stage, but here's the stat: out of 300,000 Italians, only one gets to play in the top division in the country. Why? Like, how are you going to be different from those 300,000 nationals? But because also you have to be different and better and luckier, right, than those two, because like you're not from that country. And it's very similar with like if you play D1 athletics here in the United States. So with entrepreneurship, same thing. It's like, I think only 4% of the businesses, last time I raised, like 4% of the businesses make $350,000 or more a year type deal. And then it's even smaller, $1 million or more. So as a creators, similar thing, like a YouTube channel that has about 2,000 subscribers, I think is ranked about 4,000 in the world out of the millions of channels that are out there. So what's making us different? Because anybody could put some information out there in a nice, pretty production way and get some traction. So now that we're training to be business creators, like how do we do it? So I think like, I love the fact that you focus so much on energetics and do that. So what are some maybe practical tips that we can do to start working on that hidden third layer of branding?
Yeah, well, I definitely weave it in, the programs that I run, if I work with people one-on-one, it's woven in to that because, we think about entrepreneurship, it is probably the highest form of personal development you can go through. Any
100%.
entrepreneur would tell you that. There's a lot of things that we have to work through. And so that automatically is going to be helpful the more self-development you do, but also really being mindful. I think awareness is the first key. So many people just aren't aware of it, and really learning how to manage your energy, how to show up authentically. And I see, just like you said, I see so many people like, oh, now ChatGPT, I can just go and put in my brand voice and it spits out. Well, the thing is, it's spitting out, it's scraping the internet and it's going to give you the same answer that it's giving to any other person doing what you do out there. 100%. It's not going to be different. And so, I mean, for logos, and I'm probably, again, the only brand strategist that you'll hear say this, but go on Canva, click the button, get your logo. That doesn't really matter as much. Your logo is not going to sell for you.
Yeah.
Now, of course, my team does logos. We do websites. We do them very well. And we have a different strategy, all of those things, but it's not what's going to sell. And I have so many people coming I just need a new logo. And I'm like, that is not your problem.
Yeah.
So it's typically deep dive work. And I did this first with myself because I had visibility blocks. I was the girl who was afraid to ask for ketchup. I mean, yes, I boxed. I don't know what was up with that, but I was afraid to ask for ketchup from the waitress at the restaurant as a kid. I was very shy. And so I was fine in corporate because I could show up, and even in, I was usually in front of smaller crowds as a creative director. And so when I had to come out and be the brand and promote myself, that felt very, very difficult. So I started doing the work to uncover those blocks. And I realized we all have blocks as entrepreneurs. And so part of the branding work, I view it almost as a spiritual identity process. I know that's going very deep, but not only deciding who you are in your identity, but also really how do you embody that and how do you project it out into the world in a really authentic way that feels good. So I get a lot of people come to me and they're like, I have this brand, but it doesn't really feel good, or it doesn't really sound like me, or, they're hired copywriters or whatever. So doing that work to get really clear, that deep work, that's what I love to do. And then on the journey, also seeing those blocks I uncovered with Ina, or the block I had with visibility myself, and just being getting rid of those. And now I speak on stage to tons of people and I'm fine,
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of it. And again, people don't think of oh, that's branding work, but it really is if you want to put yourself out there and be super successful in those top percentages like you talked about.
Oh, so cool. I love this because it all goes back to the inner work that we do, right? It's we're so used to, I think, as human beings, to put a blame on external things. It's I'm not selling because I don't have this branded website, right? Or I don't have this thing. And a long time ago, I put a post about what was it? The 6-figure sales letter type deal, right? And it, back then when we were freelancing, I wrote this sales letter based on the things that we were studying at the time. And I thought it did so good. And it was this story of a fitness studio customer that came in with a pen, and that we gave that pen a long time ago, and that he came in, and I shared that story. And then I related to what we were doing at the time. And I put, here's an email. And that was if you went to bizbros.co around 2018, 2017, that's what you would look at. And, around that time, we were doing our challenge 45 Live, which was publishing every single day, one time a day on live on Facebook. Yeah. And we ended up getting a call with somebody that saw a couple of those videos. We jumped, we went to a content party that they organized where we all sat down and we talked about what we did, and we were recording it. And then that led to our first 6-figure customer. And the website that we had at the time was that sales letter, which had nothing to do with the thing that we ended up, working on. And that's kind of the moral of the story with a lot of people is they all wait to have like this like perfect presence online to be able to actually talk about it. And then later, years later, I asked Pablo, the guy who ended up connecting us with this company, it's like, dude, what attracted you? And he's like, I just kept seeing you authentically because like you were sitting in the couch when Luca was like just born, like feeding him and recording this video. And you were talking about the content, which is a thing that we needed to do. And so on. And I'm like, do you even look at the website? He's like, no, man, I just connected with you. Right. And I think like that was like 5 years ago, right? Or more, like what, 8 years ago. And now it's like, okay, how do we move forward in like in this world with like tools that are so available? And I get like the logo on the thing is like the shiny thing and it's like super cool when you see a logo that you really like, you're like, oh my God, this is going to do it. Right. Yeah. But it's so important to implement what you're saying and kind of start working on us. How do you discover, I guess, for yourself, I mean, through customer, work, I'm assuming, right? To start working yourself. Is there something that you do as a first or second step to be like, okay, once I'm aware, hey, I need to work on myself. For us was the podcast, where like the podcast is the vehicle that we work ourselves and figure this like personality wise, which we thought it was going to be an external personality, but this is who we are really. This is like, right. How do you move forward from that? Like, what are the first two things that somebody could be like, okay, I'm aware of the problem. Now what?
Yeah. I really think about looking, and this is the first step in that, like aware of the problem, but also like starting the brand. I start all of my clients with vision process. And I know that's probably where a lot of people start, but I do it a little bit differently because one thing that I want people to think about is they often brand themselves for where they are now, not where they want to be. And so I like people to look 3, 5, 10 years out to where they want to be. And we can reverse engineer that and build the brand for where they want to be. And then they evolve and grow into it that much faster. And with a brand operating system in place, then that evolution becomes much more seamless instead of like, okay, 2 years in, we're shifting things. We got to reinvent again. And people spend so many time and effort and money, like rebranding, where if you actually build the foundation and the operating system right, and for the future, you can grow and evolve into it. And you don't have to have those constant cycles. You can just go and not look back, which is really fun. And so awesome. That's the main reason to look at the vision, but then also like where are the gaps from where you are to where you want to be as far as you're concerned, right? So like, for instance, when I started, I wasn't at where I am today. And now, like you said earlier, there's all these circumstances. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, the economy and the world. Well, the thing is, the world is always kind of a shaky place, unfortunately. And yes, we find ourselves in really interesting times right now. But I still have a wait list and I still have a lot of clients that are doing well. And so much of that is just taking responsibility for like, we are the ones who create our reality and our success in a sense, and not beating yourself up if you're not where you want to be, because sometimes it's a space of where you need a shift. So I'll be really transparent and say last year I had a little dip and I was like, what is going on? But instead of freaking out and like shutting down, having that awareness to ask myself, okay, why is this happening? What's happening?
Yeah.
Am I not in alignment anymore? Needs to shift? And I found that I wasn't talking about this third energetic piece. I was doing it behind the scenes and clients loved it. And I didn't have any programs that were specifically focused on that. Yeah. And then in January, I shifted that. I started talking about it. I have offers around it now, and my business just did a like 180 and took off again, like amazingly. And I was like, so it really had nothing to do with any external factors. I had to get quiet and ask myself, like, what do I really want to do? And like, I know this sounds weird, but like, where does the business want to go? Because I feel like businesses can have like a life of their own if we allow that, and if we open it up. So yeah, I think it's like seeing where we want that vision to be, and then like, what's the gap to get there from there. Yeah. And then also a lot of my clients want to write books. They want to speak on stages, all of those things. Well, do you have the skills to do that? Do you have the connections? Do you have all of those things? And just being really mindful. And then the last thing is patience, because I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, and it's like, as entrepreneurs, we're all impatient. I feel like I'm like, I want that tomorrow. And we've been sold for the last like 10 years. That's where the bro marketing comes in when we talked about yesterday. Of like, you can just lay on the beach and the money will come and you don't have to do anything and you don't have to like, and it's like, no, you have to put in the work if you're going to play the long game.
Yeah.
You have to give good results to your clients because then they'll sell the message for you. And you have to be patient because what can happen in 3 years, like I have a lot of clients will build that brand, their 10-year vision, and it happens in 3 years. So it goes a lot faster than you can imagine, but you also have to allow for that. It's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. So. No. Oh, so good. So once you're aware, now you have the steps, rewind 5 minutes, listen to it again. I love the fact that we can create where we want to be. I think a lot of people like don't even consider going there. You know, I remember as a little kid, my whole obsession was to go play soccer in Europe, in Barcelona, right? And it was, you listen to that story, it's kind of crazy how I ended up getting to Barcelona and playing soccer in the city I wanted to go play. Insane. Like these things happen in our life that were like all like nudged me that way. But at the same time, there was a lot of work that we had to put in, right? And somehow during my college career, I felt very lost. You know, I left the sport, and then that led us to create Biz Bros, and now it led us to do this. And it took us a few years to try to figure out like where to. And at some level, we're still trying to figure out like where that is. And for some time, we were gathering feedback from what customers or people were asking us to do for them because we're a service provider. And we're like, oh, maybe that's the path. And maybe that's the path. And I don't think that's the right way to approach it because we encountered a lot of friction on executing the product, on providing the service. It was not our best work. And we've been very honest with those customers at the time. And with them, we had to like part ways at some point, right? So once we recognize we're like, that's the path that we want to take, you know, including, you know, the conversation that we had yesterday about the soccer project that we have.
Yeah.
Everything starts to flow because your mental state is there. Your willingness is there. You know, doesn't matter if you sleep 4 hours do what?
And your passion too.
And your passion it comes across, right? And that's why I feel we've been able to sustain this podcast for so many years and so many episodes because we're like so passionate about these conversations. We love meeting people. So we found that vehicle that aligns with us, not only for the content, but also for the brand and the energy and the things that we want to put out to the world. So cool that like everything that I've experienced over the last year, now you're like bring it into this incredible, awesome, beautiful pill. And you're like, Luis, here's the thing that I do. Where were you 5 years ago for us, Tiffany? Where were you? Oh my gosh.
Although everything happens at the right timing, right? So, but no, I hear you. I feel like when we put our mind to that, like I can just see you as a kid being like soccer, you know, and it is, people believe in manifestation. And I think there is some truth to that, but it is so much about the work and the effort to get there too, right? You can't just sit on a couch and will it to be. And so it's the same way I got to my corporate career. I had my dream job working with those big brands. And it's what I always envisioned. And the way I ended up there, I could have never made up or imagined. Like I couldn't have made that happen. It just happened by connections and things. And that's the way that we need to look at our businesses too. And then having the belief that it's possible. I think that's the other thing is, I mean, I could go on tangents for hours, but the other thing is so many people think like, oh, is it possible? Am I worthy? I mean, we just have so many things that are built in from years of conditioning as children or as women or what have you. Money blocks about growing up in scarcity. I mean, there's just so many layers of the onion that need to be peeled off to get to where we want to go. And so, it's, to me, I know it's like not typical. It's all part of your branding process.
I love it. I would never, before this conversation, and like, even if you go to college, right? Like that's not what they teach you in those like branding classes, right? It's like,
I did go to college and I actually taught as a professor for 7 years too. Never taught a thing about that. No.
That's insane. I'm going to be here. Why is college wrong? And nothing wrong with going to college. I mean, that's a debate for a different episode. But all I'm saying is that I think right now we're uncovering these incredible things, and we're like continue to excavate and find like these little pockets of like value and information and things about ourselves that will serve us massively as we move forward, right? Like the Luis that was, podcasting 5 years ago is not the same Luis that's podcasting today, right? The Tiffany that's like speaking on stage is not the same one that was boxing. So like we change, and we have to be okay with that. So cool, Tiffany. So I had this thought from the beginning of the conversation. Well, first off, what's your definition of branding?
So I really think of it as, to simplify it, I think it's, really is the ecosystem of your business. So marketing is how you get it out into the world, right? So, and that's really what you guys do in different aspects with the content. So branding is everything before that, like the way that you're showing up, even your client, like internal, like how are the emails being answered? How is your team being oriented? The client success path, for instance.
Yeah.
Who's on your team? It's all a part of the brand because it's your reputation. And so that's why like big corporations take so much time with like the aesthetics. Like if you think about a nice hotel versus like an inexpensive hotel, there's the brand that's economical. It's you're going to kind of get what you get or whatever. But if you want to be a luxury brand, then you're really thinking about the aesthetics, the smell when you walk in, the way the sheets are folded, the way that your employees are greeting the guests. And so there's of course different steps in between there too. So really,
absolutely,
the entire operating system of your business is what I consider a brand.
Oh, so cool. I saw a video not so long ago about this like real estate guy doing a tour in one of the most expensive buildings in New York. And he's like in this like busy street, a lot of noise. And he walks and there's a space in between that front door and the lobby. And there's a water feature, and it's probably like 6 feet wide. And it's like almost like a waterfall. And as he's walking by, as soon as he goes into the building, now the smell is different. The light is different. The sound, you cannot hear the sound from outside. And it's like you get transported into this. And he is explaining, look, the water feature's function is to block the noise from the outside, because once you enter here, this is luxury, this is high end, this is like different things. So I was like so taken by that. Right. And now that you mentioned this, like this is part of the branding of like that specific building. Right. And the other day, and I want to bring it down, I guess, for like content specific, and maybe share an example here of something that we produced the other day, that it was different from things that we're producing. Not so much, but it's almost like a clip. Right. And when people see these clips online, a vertical piece of content or something, that, right, we see a lot of trends. We see a lot of things that are like reaction to this other thing, like all these like viral moments, because they're based on human and dopamine and things, right?
Right.
But it's all, after a while, it all feels the same, right? It's like, oh, like this same dance or this same song or like the same thing. So like for some reason, my gut has always told me be a little bit different. Like if people are zigging, you go in zagging, right? Like how can you be a little bit different? Taking elements from that, but like how can you be a little bit different? So in our specific industry and how we create content, we do a lot of talking head, clearly, because we have a podcast. But literally we're like, okay, based on all these like branding principles that you're telling me, this is what's going in my head. I've been breaking down our process and be like, okay, it's personality is where we want to go as a media company, right? It's kind of like the feel and like the emotion maybe that I'm personally feeling, because for me, the fact that I enjoy creating is a massive point there, because if I don't enjoy creating, I'm not going to do it. Right. I think most people might feel identified with that. So I started creating this clip and it's like, okay, the message based on the 6 levers that we talked about in your show the other day, it's like we have this 6 levers. So I have my message. I'm going to create it with like this specific camera. Logistically, I'm going to shift my angle, but I'm in studio, which the studio on its own, like inside has its own like specific branding that we kind of integrated into our own like umbrella brand. So it looks and feels coherent. And then I did my talking part. So now what's part of our branding, I think the feedback has been energy. So the pacing of the editing was a little bit faster. Now, how do we help people with like subtitles? So now the subtitles, I don't want them to be the generic subtitles, right? I want them to look and feel like part of us. So Content is Profit brand has moved into this kind of funky place where like the music that we use in the backgrounds are like, it's like these funky themes, right? So like what's a little bit of a funky font that we have? And we have like these fonts that are approved to go out with pieces of content. We have these songs that are approved to get the feeling of like energy. If you see our logo right here, it's shaped as a sticker because it's part of our story. Like we started the company selling stickers. So like, it's like these colors and like all of it is connected. And then that's the part. So we're like, I share this story and people are like, oh my gosh, like, do I have to do all that to publish one post? It can be overwhelming, but I'm like breaking down the process, but this happens subconsciously after being able to share that and so on. So that's why people like you, Tiffany, exist. So you can help them figure that one out, right? And then you don't have to do it all by yourself. So I'm encouraging you, reach out to Tiffany and the links are below.
I always say you can't see the label from inside the bottle, right? Like it's hard to have an objective view if you're the one doing the work in your own business. And so that's like you said, that's why I'm here as, it's really a brand guide. I say brand strategist, that's more of the corporate term, but it's really a brand guide to help people like, are these the right decisions? Is this what I'm really supposed to be doing? How do we do this?
Almost like the brand doula, the brand doula.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it too. Exactly.
That's so cool. Guiding you through the process of energetics and to create more.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Speaking of that, brand alchemy is the new offer that I'm doing to really go deep with those energetic pieces, like I mentioned, because that's the piece, some people will come to me and they have a brand and they're like, I don't know why it's working. And I'm like, actually, you do have a pretty good brand. So you need the energetics. So we do all the way from like the very beginning and the messaging, getting that clear, the visuals, and then that piece on top, which then locks it in.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm going back to like different experiences of my content creation process. Like recently we went out so for context, we have obviously our show Content is Profit. I have a football show that we've been trying to launch and figure out. We finally figured out the format that we want to do. So we've done 2 of those as in the recording of this, highly successful. I told you we had about 2,000 people watching last night. So that was kind of cool. And then I recently started a very underground kind of like personal YouTube channel that I want to explore myself as a creator on a different channel. Like that's like super personal type. One of the videos that I'm working on then is a trip that we did with Disney, like with our family. But I wanted to make a little bit of a different angle. And the question that we're trying to ask is like, what is the best place to nap in Disney? And and it's I'm working on it, but the idea came as we were recording because I mean, this is more of a personal vlog type deal, with a little bit of an angle of like what I find funny. And, who knows, maybe people like it, maybe people don't. I don't care. I'm doing it for myself and to have a great experience with my kids, right? So we're asking the staff members of Disney, it's like, hey, what's the best place to nap? And they told us like these awesome places. But at the same time, like it all goes back to the brand of LD Creates, like Luisda Creates. Like I took on the identity of a creator, right? Whatever that looks like, it's going to evolve. But like, I am a creator. I'm a creator of opportunities. And I'm a creator of content. I'm a creator of business. And like the moment that shifted in my head, everything else made sense. And it's almost like gave me the permission to go do the thing that I've been talking so long about it. So that moment of clarity was massive. How, in your specific case, have you seen examples of like that where like it clicks and like when does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's no like specific like, oh, it's going to happen at this point. But I think that's part of my role as a guide. And sometimes people get there themselves like you did. And then they're like, okay, now I'm here. What now how do I tie it all together?
Yeah, exactly.
But like same thing with Ina. like another good story is my client Liz. She was in the health coaching space. So a lot of her images and things like that were like, you know, like what you'd like think of like the influencer, the health thing. And she was like, I just don't know. She's like, this isn't it. This isn't it. And so sometimes that discovery of like what is next. Sometimes like you're like, I knew I had this idea for a couple of years and I hadn't integrated, and how does it all fit together?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a matter of that. And sometimes it's like, I don't even know what's next. And so when we sat down, it was like the realization of, oh, I have all these people coming to me in the health space now of like, how did you build that business? She didn't want to be a health coach anymore. She actually wanted to coach other health coaches to do what she did. And so we kind of shifted the brand in that direction. And it completely took off because she's actually a mom of 5 children on a farm in Wisconsin. And so she was showing up as this influencer, and like you wouldn't even know that she was. I mean, she kind of showed her kids a little bit, but she wasn't showing up as her real self again. And she wasn't doing that what she wanted to do. And a lot of the times we're so focused on the path that we don't slow down to be like, oh, this is where I actually want to go. It's so interesting. And then it's like, okay, what is this? Like, how can you easily shift it? How can you, include everything together? What does that look like? And so one more thing I would say is that, the name of my company technically is Your Legacy Brand, right? And the whole reason it's built on legacy is because I typically help people where they're at that point of like, okay, this is my legacy work in the world. And the whole goal that I want for people is that it's going to be scalable, sustainable, and sellable. So the scalable and sustainable are pretty straightforward. When you have the brand operating system, it becomes much more sustainable because you don't have to constantly reinvent. You don't have to constantly like think about what is this going to be. Scalable because then you have your path, that 5-10 year vision. Then you're like, I know where I'm going. We can kind of navigate as we go. But the last thing that people don't think about is sellable. So the cool thing about you being a creator is you are always going to own your own brand, right? As a personal creator, and you can do whatever you want with that. But when you create these sub brands under it, so like I have Your Legacy brand, now I have Brand Alchemy coming, or like it's here, but it's coming out into fruition more. Those become assets. And so that's where I like to say that your brand is the number one asset that you're actually creating. Yes, you're creating a business, but even more so, you're creating a brand. Like if you think about Silicon Valley and some of these brands that don't even have much to them physically, but the IP is worth so much. They're selling for millions and billions of dollars. So if you're building a brand the right way, that can be sellable in the future, which is huge. And that's another thing that people don't think about is how do we create this ecosystem so you can sell like either the whole thing and still maintain ownership of your personal brand if you want to go do something else, or like sell off pieces of the brand. And not everybody wants to do that, but I think people don't think about setting themselves up for success in that way.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think also it gives the freedom to pivot maybe a little more, right? Because if you focus on that brand, and let's say content is profit, right? Like content is profit, initially started as me and Fonzie together for a long time. We're like, this is never going to change. Well, guess what? Fonzie had a kid and he needs some time off, and, now the show has to run, right? The concept around the show has remained the same. It's like, can we have conversations with incredible entrepreneurs and business owners that are using content and the principle of content to create revenue for the business, right? So that could be hosted by the Biz Bros, that could be hosted by me, that could be hosted by somebody else in the future. We don't know, but the essence of the show, the brand, will endure, right? And then we can transition. So I think like what you said is so valuable. And I think it's planting this seed in many people that might not, be thinking about this thing because maybe we're so in it that, we now can be like, oh, okay, let me step back 5 steps and think about 5 years in the future. Like, what is the life that I want? What is the business that I want? And then based on that, now we can create something that's really cool. So awesome. We'll talk about this all day long. By the way, you're gonna be coming and doing a workshop with us in the Business Creator Club. That's written. That's gonna happen. I'm just like throwing you under the bus right now.
I am more than happy to.
Let's go. So, for those that
herself gets very excited.
let's go. I know I'm going to bring some boxing gloves just to like break the ice. That's so cool. What a fun fact. But again, Tiffany, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here in Content is Profit with me. Is there anything else that you want to add before we head out?
I would just say to close up today is like, just really lean into that vision. Everybody listening, we get so stuck, just like we've been saying, you get so stuck in the now, and then the events of the world can kind of put that layer of scarcity into us. And I think it's actually now is the time as leaders that we're needed more than ever.
Yeah.
If we really want to help create the world that we want to see, we need to like rise up more than like lean back. And so I just encourage everybody to lean in instead. That's
right. Is there any place that you want to connect with people before I plug in my own things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hang out. I'm social media optional. I'm not on most social media platforms because if you have a really good brand, you don't need to be.
I love it.
So I'm on LinkedIn. Just look me up there. And then I do have a 3-day workshop coming up soon. Maybe we can drop that in the show notes if that's cool. So
100%.
People loved what they heard, or join Luis's club, and I'll be speaking there too.
Let's go. Well, thank you so much for playing me. But yes, all Tiffany links are going to be like right on the description. All you got to do is scroll down, a little bit, couple thumb scrolls, and you'll get there. But also, if you want to be a part of the first founding members of Business Creator Club, you can go to businesscreator.club, where we talk in the foundations of the Content is Profit system and how we've done it with not only podcasting, but other people. We talk production, and then we bring experts like Tiffany here to do awesome workshops for the things that we need to, and it's going to help us move the needle forward. So cool. Tiffany, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.